How do you be like water? You go with the flow, right? Yeah? We go into the flow, we let go, we allow. And that's our key that we're studying today, that we're inviting an inspiration, we're inviting a new way of seeing this, of understanding this. And how grateful I am that we have this beautiful song that kicks us off perfectly, because water just flows. It doesn't try to go uphill. There's a divine intelligence that's guiding it. I've told this story before, how I grew up in Northwest Ohio, and every time I went outside to play, there was a hill to go down and there was a creek at the bottom of the hill. And my mom would always say, "Don't go in the creek," as I was running out the door. And that's exactly where I was going. I love water. I'm very drawn to it. And maybe that's part of what drew me to this part of the country. I don't know, but there's water everywhere here. And it's so beautiful and it's so instructive. And so what I know is that water is very much like, once we align with that first key of desire, we align in spirit consciousness, God consciousness, and we begin to ask ourselves, what is my true heart's desire? And we begin to partake of that and inquire and realize that our desire is, as has been spoken in Scripture, that God's will and desire for us is to be happy. And so we begin to follow love. We let love point the way, because desire and love are synonymous. And so we let love point the way. We align with love. And our second key then was about intention. And what is intention? Intention is that focus. And part of what we're going to talk about today is how we've cultivated the practice of distraction, and now we're returning to the practice and the art of allowing, which how we cultivate allowance is to continuously ask, what's my heart's desire? And marry it with intention. And intention means that we're aligning our whole life to that desire. Once you make that alignment, you flow like water. Once we make that alignment with the power and the presence, we become the channel for Spirit to move through us, to guide us perfectly. That Swan Creek definitely flows into the Maumee River, which flows into Lake Erie, which flows into, I think we discussed this before, the St. Lawrence Seaway, which eventually takes it to the ocean. I might have skipped a step or two, but it doesn't matter. Because when you're starting out, you don't need to know the outcome specifically or what's going to happen in between. You just know you're headed for the sea. You're headed for the ocean. You're headed for the vast depth of that ocean, which represents God. God consciousness represents the all that is. And so rather than mistrusting what happens along the way, we're beginning to trust life. We're beginning to trust life and to flow like water, to practice non-resistance, because law would say, spiritual law says, what we resist persists, right? And so we're going to stop trying to go uphill. We're going to stop resisting what is, and instead, with humility, we're going to begin to let life inform us and reveal itself to us, exactly what we need to know to take us from the creek to the river, to the lake, to wherever's next, to the ocean. Right? So that's kind of what we're doing. And so I know that it's really easy to flow like water when life is good, right? And yet in our teaching, do we not say, life is good? And then what do we say?
All the time.
So life is good all the time. Do you believe it? Are you living like it, though? Are you living like it when something not so good happens? Yeah, we're going to talk about that today. I've got a couple little tips for us today. But one of the things that I wanted to do, have you ever noticed that, and I don't know if you know this, not everybody here went to ministerial school, but in ministerial school, they always tell you, start out with a joke. Have you ever noticed I hardly ever start out with a joke? Because I can't remember the St. Lawrence River. I don't remember jokes. It just doesn't work for me, but I trust that I'm funny anyway, and that it's going to happen somewhere along the way. It may not be right at the get-go, but there's a value in that, because the value of laughter, the value of lightness is that it connects us. It helps us to remember, hey, not to take life so seriously. And the other thing I kind of just decided to do here was to share a little bit about my life. Not my life from when I was a kid, 50 years ago, but my life right now. I've always taught from my life, and I noticed that I haven't been doing that lately. And I'm not sure why. It doesn't matter. All I know is that I'm inspired to do that now. And so I'm going to share a couple of pictures. And as I do this, I'm introducing somebody who is not here. He usually sits right in there with me. And he is a person that I met here, moving to this area after huge changes in my life that I probably would not have judged as good. And yet, I didn't know where I was going next and all the good that it would lead me to, including being part of this community. And I also happen to meet somebody who is a love in my life and that I'm spending time with. And we do fun things, and sometimes they are embedded with spiritual teachings because he's a spiritual being. His name is Mark Lewis. He's the guy that rode his bike from Washington, D.C. to Eugene, Oregon on his 60th year on the planet, the same year that I turned 60 and walked the Camino. And so anyway, we went on vacation sometime after we first met. And this is just the value of aligning with people who are like-minded. And in this first picture, you can see, let's see what it looks like. That's Mark. He's got a bicycle helmet on. And the sign says, life is good. Now, where we were, I didn't notice the sign. All I knew is that this guy, who I was just kind of getting to know, all of a sudden jumped up and made a funny expression in front of the sign. And I thought, isn't that funny? I kind of laughed. I didn't get it at the time. And what I learned is that he strikes these poses periodically because he's made a commitment that life is good. And when we make the commitment that life is good and begin to live our lives according to that principle as the law of our life, guess what happens? You attract goodness to you. You attract happiness to you. And guess what else I've learned? Is that we can be in our childlike nature and fun and still be adults. We can still do what we need to do in life, but not take ourselves so seriously. Does that compute? And so this idea that I've learned in the way of mastery is it says that seriousness is of the ego. And I don't know about you, but I tend to constrict when I'm in fear. I tend to resist life when I'm fearful, instead of remembering to trust what we say here, that life is good all the time. Now, what happens when you meet somebody, and later I learned his motto in life is that I'm loving life. So loving life meets me, who says, I am committed to happiness no matter what. That happiness regardless of conditions. And that happiness gives way to joy. And so those were the two mottos that we had, both from our 60th year excursion in life. One riding across the country on a bicycle, the other walking across Spain. on a pilgrimage. And so the combination over the years of what has happened is that we have a new motto, or I have a new motto. I'm loving life. But guess what? I'm in a reciprocal relationship. Life's also loving me. So as I love life, life loves me right back. And what does that love look like? It looks like support. It looks like all needs met. It looks like happiness. It looks like resources when I am experiencing lack or the perception of lack. It looks like friendships. It looks like spiritual community. It looks like I walk through the door and I feel at home. That's life loving us back. But we're loving life. And so there I am on my vacation this year. And I don't know if you can see, but there's a waterfall behind me. And in a minute, this is a video. I'm going to show the video. So we're on a bike ride. We're on the Great Allegheny. And we see this waterfall. And what do you do when you see a waterfall? You stop and you behold it. You become a beholder of the flow of water and its beauty. And you let it reveal what it has for you. And so, living and loving life while it's loving us. So that's the combined motto. I'm living life while life is living me. Can you say that? I'm loving life. And while life is loving me, I guess I need to get it down, right? There's one of those moments. It's not a joke, but it's funny. So, one more time. I'm loving life. And life is loving me right back. Right back. Now look at a neighbor and say that to them. I'm loving life. And then tell them, life's loving you right back. Yeah, feels good, doesn't it? Some of us in this audience are old enough to remember who Paul Harvey is. Paul Harvey would start a story, there'd be a break, and then come back. And now for the rest of the story. So now for the rest of the story. How do you remember this when the storms happen in life? When it doesn't feel like, oh, look at the pretty waterfall. So what you don't know yet, the rest of the story is right after this, we hop back on our bikes, and all of a sudden, we got a ways to go, and all of a sudden, the sky gets really dark. It was not expected. And a torrential rain starts. And it's really bad. I'm on an e-bike, thank God, but I'm still struggling. It's windy, torrents of rain, and what happens is that the weather changed and it was cold. And had some gear, but not all the gear you would need, and all of a sudden, the rain felt like hail, like it was piercing my skin, but particularly my face. And I didn't have sunglasses or any glasses on, so I felt like I couldn't see. And at one point, I'm like, Mark, like we got to stop. I got to stop. And so we stop and we find shelter, but there is no shelter. So we're like in the woods waiting for the storm to pass. And I had a flashback of being on Camino, my first day, summiting the Pyrenees Mountains, going over from France into Spain, and a storm kicked up. And I was remembering with a little like, oh yeah, I said I was going to be a happy pilgrim. Well, I'm not so happy right now. And I was very serious, and I was afraid. And I remember in that moment that I knew everything was going to be okay and to lighten up. I don't know how it happened. I guess just years of practicing. And that's what happened on this bike ride. And the storm passed, like the eagle knows in the Daniel Nahmod song, that the storm will pass. And when it passes, what do you have? Oh, so life is good all the time. Life is good all the time. I never thought I could strike that pose authentically, That happened spontaneously. I kind of judged it before, but now I'm like, yeah, life is good. And then when the storm passes, I don't know, if you can tell we're soaking wet, but there is imperceptible on the screen, there is a rainbow behind us. And so that's life, my friends. It's just really what life is. And so how do we incorporate this in our daily lives? Do you guys know what a hack is? Yeah? Well, somebody commented about a hack, and so I looked it up. A hack is essentially a clever workaround. It's a shortcut or unconventional method that helps you do something more easily, efficiently, or effectively. Originally, it came from the computer culture. A hack was a smart, improvised solution created by programmers. Over time, it expanded into everyday language. It's always surprisingly simple, a hack. And in the simplicity, in the spirit of simplicity, I offer to you hack number 1. So hack number 1 is what we do all the time, but I'm just putting it in the context of this conversation so that you'll remember it. What do we do? I think we need a t-shirt that says, yes. Thank you, Denise. Let's pause and let's take a breath together. Just by virtue of pausing, it creates an interruption. Following breath and breathing connects us with ourselves, with God, with spirit, with love, however you identify God consciousness. It creates a spaciousness when we pause and we breathe. And it is in this moment that I invite us to insert something called minding the gap. In that spaciousness, in that breath, to allow in that gap just the observer to come forward. Not the one who's chattering in your ear about how horrible whatever it is you're looking at is, or that the storm's never going to pass, or that the bank account is bare, or that the diagnosis seems too heavy, or life seems too heavy. Just pause and take a breath in those moments. Breathe in and out. And remember, oh yeah, I said life was good all the time. Oh yeah, I'm loving life. Not. But just remember that you had a high resolve at some point, and that was a true resolve. And in our breath and our breathing in this holy instant, we can remember it. And this was from our reading today. Once you have decided to awaken, to follow the heart, your heart's desire, and to be wholly committed with intention to it, to keep asking, what do I want? What do I desire? All of life gets the signal, and it begins to deliver to you everything that you need in order to remember the truth that you're committed to. And it doesn't always look like what we think it should. It doesn't always look that way. It's okay, we'll breathe together. I'll hold your hand. We'll hold one another's hand, and we'll remind each other of this. And when we pause, we're always in such a hurry, aren't we? I was on my walk yesterday, and I realized I've become intimate with the landscape here. I've become intimate with First Landing State Park and the ocean. I've seen it now through a couple of seasons. And when I pause and breathe and let life reveal itself to me, I see new things. I see something I never saw before, and it's exactly what I need to see. If I'm willing to slow down and allow life to teach me, if I'm willing to suspend covering up that landscape, that beauty, with what I think it needs to be, what it ought to look like, what my judgments are, what you should do, what the politicians need to be doing, if I can just disengage and become an observer for a moment and be willing to see it differently. Just willing, that's all. Willing to be willing, if that's the best you can do. It's okay. So that's the first thing. And when we do that, have you ever seen those videos where it says, wait for it? Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it. And see what it's telling you. So that's hack number 1. Hack number 2. So I'm walking around, and hack number 2 is smile. I have seen, contemplating this talk, reminders to smile everywhere. That's the last one I saw after I was kind of developing this. I walk into the Green Cat Cafe and getting a smoothie, and I'm browsing around, and the yellow caught my eye, and it said smile. I'm like, get out of town. Okay, that belongs in the talk. Okay. So hack number 2 is smile. My very first Unity minister was Reverend Mary Umwake in the mid-90s, Unity Church of Overland Park, Kansas. And she had a big chair up on the stage, and she'd sit in that chair, super regal, and I'd like peek at her during meditation because I just thought she was awesome. And I'd look at her, and she meditated with a smile on her face. It was imperceptible almost, but it was there. And I thought, I like that. I like her smile. And then what? Probably around that time, the movie Eat, Pray, Love came out. Do you guys remember that movie? If you haven't seen it, it's good. And it was based on a memoir by Elizabeth Gilbert. And there's a gentle reminder in this moment during her journey when she's in Bali, when her teacher reminds her to smile during meditation. And the teaching is simple. The body listens to the messages we give. The body listens. This is a hack for our nervous system. We're informing our body before we can make up an affirmation, before we can do a prayer. The smile is informing our entire being of that glimmer of a remembrance that you said life was going to be good all the time, that you were committed to being happy, or that you decided you were going to love life. Like, in some moments, it's really hard to do it. It's really hard. I've started doing yoga, just like recently. But I've done yoga before. But the mat, as you approach your mat, that's your domain. And your life is like that. This is yours, this area. And you get to decide how you're going to be, how you're going to practice. You're not looking at somebody else on their mat. And you don't care if they're looking at you. This is your area. And as we approach our mat, we first pause. What do I desire for my practice? And what am I committed to? And then I walk onto my mat. And my breath heralds movement. Breathing in, breathing out. Movement, rest. Movement, rest. And then there comes a move that's just gotcha. It's hard. It hurts. You can't do it. Does anybody get the shakes when they do yoga? It's like your whole body is just like not stable, which means you got to back off just a little bit. And what my new yoga instructor named Andy says, that's when you smile. Just smile. The smile is part of your practice. So this week, guess where I go to the dentist? Smiles by Design. Not kidding. Friday, I'm having fillings changed out. I have more Novocaine in this side of my face than I feel like I ever had, because there was a group to release. And I mean, they were the mercury fillings, and I just wanted different ones. So anyway, I remember, and I got this thing propping my mouth open, and my face feels huge, and I can't feel it, but I know something's going on because I can hear the drilling and there's stuff flying. And I'm thinking about the smile, because, you know, I think about my talks all the time. And I'm like, how can I smile when half of my lip is like going like this? But my intention was there. This side, I think, went up ever imperceptible. So sometimes, you know, you're prevented from smiling, but the intention is there, and your body knows you're smiling. Doesn't look like it. Looks like you're frowning, but I'm smiling. You can smile with your eyes, too, I learned, and I was looking lovingly at my dentist. So it just reminded me of the woman with the smile, which on my Camino, I went to Paris afterwards, and I got to meet her. And as you look around and you move around, her smile changes. But I'm looking at her smile a little differently today. I see somebody who knows something, who's self-assured, comfortable with herself. So, smile. And if I had gotten smile earlier, we could have done that song. Smile even. Another time. So for me, the smile signifies my remembrance of my high resolve. What have I committed my life to? In the midst of something I'm not liking at all, I'm going to pause. I'm going to take that breath. I'm going to withhold my judgment, and I'm going to mind the gap. I'm going to observe. I'm going to let life reveal itself to me, and I'm going to smile. Sometimes it's important to really practice full-on big smiles. Sometimes we forget, and that was that picture of Mark. You know, that whole thing. That's a big smile that's going on. So let us not forget to smile in the good times, and those moments that we judge as not so good. Just inform your being. And then finally, the third hack is just the key of allowance. You're going to get this on a card when the baskets go around, along with a key and some affirmations to practice this week, because it's about practice. It's about what are we going to do from the next moment, from here, when we walk out those doors. That's where the practice begins. And it basically is, not one moment is ordinary in our lives, not one. Every experience is an opportunity for awakening, and it's been delivered by life itself, which is loving us. And that there's stepping stones, not tombstones, to guide us home. And so that's what we have here.